After lunch, I prepped some guacamole for dinner since all of my avocados were ripe and definitely needed to be used up. Thankfully, I had them stored in the fridge, so they would have lasted longer, but I figured since we were having fish tacos for dinner tonight, that guacamole would be a great addition to our fish tacos. Let me know what you like to add to your guacamole. I generally will add onion, garlic, limes. If it's summer, I'll add fresh tomato if I have it in my garden. And then I'll also add cilantro if I have that on hand. You can also just make guac with, I think, lime juice, little garlic powder, and salt if that's all you have. But if you have the ability to add all the fresh ingredients, it definitely takes it up a notch. I also ended up prepping a coleslaw to go with our fish tacos as well. Coleslaw recipe. Okay, so we have cabbage, and then I also did radicchio as well as cabbage. And then it says to do 1 lime zested and juiced. Well, I did way more. I did 3 limes. So I like, lots of lime. And then it says to add mayonnaise, sour cream, chopped cilantro, pepper, salt, and cumin. That's pretty easy. I might do some chili powder instead of the ground cumin. I also made some flour tortillas to go with dinner tonight. You can't have tacos without tortillas, so I realized I didn't have any, so I needed to make some, and I was out of corn, and I figured the flour tortilla would taste really good with the fish and coleslaw. If you haven't made homemade tortillas, it's pretty easy. It's just salt, baking powder, some oil, and some hot water and all-purpose flour mixed together, and you can just knead the dough and then let it rest for maybe 10 minutes, and then you're all ready to roll out your tortillas. They really are an easy, quick thing to throw together if you are in a pinch and you don't have tortillas and you do have all the ingredients to make them. Here I'm prepping my fish. I seasoned it with salt, pepper, and then left it in the fridge to just, soak up all the salt and flavoring from the pepper. And then I also made this flour mixture. I added some flour, some garlic powder, I added some chili powder, and a little bit of paprika. And that was to coat our fish in once we were ready to make dinner that evening. And here I have a little afternoon treat. And I'm rolling out my tortillas. This can be a little time consuming, but ideally, if you can put on a podcast or something nice in the background, it's not too tedious of work. Goes pretty quick once you get in a rhythm. All right, it's later in the evening and we are cooking up our fish that we had prepped in the fridge. Here I'm just coating it in the flour mixture we made earlier, and here's our coleslaw. It's all ready to go. And this ended up, I've actually never made this meal. We normally don't have white fish, but we ended up getting some Alaskan cod. So this was a really delicious dinner. Definitely something we're gonna put in the rotation. It was just a nice change from what we normally have. So I definitely recommend making fish tacos if you get the opportunity. And here Andrew was having his little nightcap, and then I ended up having a little dessert just as a sweet treat later that evening. So this was, I believe, a Friday, and I decided to do some extra meal prep for the coming Monday work week because I didn't want to do food prep on the weekend, and I knew I was going to have a really busy work week the following week. So I ended up on Friday spending a good amount of time just putting together some meals. I ended up making a batch of bread because I think we were getting low and we tend to go through that fairly quickly. And then I also ended up putting together some other meals. I made some baked twice stuffed baked potatoes. They're pretty easy to throw together, and I've had really good luck freezing this dish, so you can prep the whole meal and then freeze it and then bake it whenever you're ready to eat it. You can see my potatoes were baked, so I just took out all the filling and put the outside skin in a little casserole dish. And then once I had them all cut up and the filling taken out, I added all of my delicious ingredients. I think I added butter, sour cream, yogurt, onion, salt, black pepper. You could really add whatever you want at this stage. And then you can just use a beater or hand mixer to incorporate all of the ingredients and get them nice and fluffy. And then I just used this little scooper and got my potatoes filled up, added a little bit of paprika and dill, and they were ready for the freezer. Here I am prepping some vegetables for a chili. We ended up deciding to also make a chili because it was another easy meal to make ahead, and I could always throw it in the freezer if need be. So here I'm getting my ground beef out of the package. I had thawed this, I think, the day before or that morning. So I'm cooking up all this ground beef. Some of it will be for the chili, and some of it will be for a lasagna that we're also going to make ahead and freeze. Here we're putting together some goat cheese, garlic, and herbs, which is going to go in our lasagna. And then here I'm also starting my chili, getting the vegetables going. And then once I cooked down my vegetables, I added some spices and continued to let them cook. And then I added some crushed tomatoes to make that nice tomato-y chili base. I ended up adding bone broth and water as well, and then once this ground beef was all seasoned up and nice and cooked, I ended up adding some to the chili and then setting aside some for the lasagna. I was trying to think of a creative way to add vegetables to our lasagna that we were also prepping, so I ended up getting a couple zucchinis from the grocery store, and we kind of gave them a nice sear on the outside to kind of add flavor to them, and then we just layered them in with all the lasagna toppings. So again, that was ground beef, we had the goat cheese, we had the zucchini, and then normal cheese and red sauce, and then I like to use these chickpea lentil noodles. They're a little bit higher in fiber and protein, and they're really easy because you don't have to cook them ahead of time. You can just layer them in, and they're gonna cook up really nice when you go to bake your lasagna. All right, we have another meal ready for the freezer. That felt good to have that one done. And then after I got that in the freezer, I just went over and started dipping up the chili. And I think I froze some of the chili, and I also ended up leaving some in the refrigerator for the coming week. It's wintertime, guys, and if you're anything like me, you're trying to stay fit even through these cold months. This is one of my favorite ab workouts. I like to keep it really easy. All I do is set a 1-minute timer for each station, and then I'll do each movement for the full minute. Whenever I'm doing an ab workout, I like to be able to focus on the movement I'm doing and not try to rush through it and by counting my reps. So I find whenever I'm doing any kind of core or ab workout, it's just nicer to set a timer instead of doing a certain amount of each exercise. That way you don't worry about how many you're doing. Instead, you just focus on the movement, and when the timer goes off, you move on to the next thing. If any of these movements are new to you, you could definitely start with a 30-second timer or a 45-second timer. You're gonna get great benefit from all these moves, even if you do a shorter time to start out. So I started here with the front plank that you saw me do before. I just like to bring my knee up to my elbow. That really works your core and your abs if you're wanting to do that. And then I went into a side plank, and I would do 30 seconds on each side. So that would end up being a full minute side plank, but I would switch partway through. And then I did these donkey kicks, and you could do this 30 seconds per side, or you could do 5 per side, and then repeat that. And then again, we end it with a nice glute bridge. This is such a great exercise, good for your glutes, your legs. And then we're gonna repeat it a third time. And then to finish this workout, I did some ab movements on my back. I started here with some leg lifts, and then you can bend the knee and you can do like a 90-degree leg lift. This will work your lower abs. And then I love these here. This really gets the upper abdominal area. And then of course, bicycle crunches. Those are always gonna be great. And then I repeated this. Again, I did the leg lifts. And then instead of doing the 90-degree leg lifts, I think these are called stink bug. I don't really know what those are called, but you could look it up. And then I finished the second round with bicycle crunches. And then the third round, I did the leg lifts again. And then for the second exercise in the third round, I did these again. I think they're called dead bug. Yeah, that's what they're called. I think it's because you're supposed to look like a dead bug. And then I finished with this. Again, I love this movement. It kind of works that upper abdominal area. And then I finished with these kind of crunches with my knees at 90 degrees. And then I always like to finish with a little bit of a stretch. How cold is it?
It's not very cold. There's frost on the ground.
It's like 26 degrees.